Miss Jordan, and today is Bookmas Day 11, where I talk about the 2018 book releases that I actually read. I just decided to talk about, since I've talked about the newly releases books that I've read this year, I decided to talk about the books that that are published this year that I actually have read. So let's get started. These are no particular order, but the first one I'm going to be talking about is The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. I really enjoy this book. I actually read this on audiobook. The audiobook was okay, but I just still enjoyed the story anyway. I only have a minor problems with it, but it was still an enjoyable read. The next one I've read is Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. This is becoming one of my favorite books this year. I could not put it down. I've read it within 3 days. I just happy that I really enjoyed it. This was one of my most anticipated releases of this year. I just was so happy that I got to read it, especially for the Fairy Tale-a-thon, which I'll link my vlog down below so you guys can check it out, and also my co-hosts from the Fairy Tale-a-thon, because they're all lovely, and I'm happy that I was able to be one of the co-hosts for the readathon, and we're going to be having round 2, which we'll be talking about somewhere next month, so you guys should be on the lookout for that. But this retelling of The Little Mermaid, especially the origin story of the Sea Witch, was an awesome story to tell, especially when it lines up with the original fairy tale. And if you guys want to read this, I advise you all to grab tissues, because you might cry at the end, because I definitely cried at the end. So yeah, and this is becoming one of my favorite books of this year. The next book I'm going to be talking about is Fox by Nadine Brentes. This is a historical fiction fantasy where it takes place during somewhere in the 1600s, where people had to wear masks because they're caught by the plague where people turn into stone. I really enjoy this, even though it was a slow read. I think it took me about maybe 2 weeks to read because I was busy with school, but overall I still enjoy it. I always have mixed feelings about fantasy and historical fiction together, but there is one that I really enjoyed, which is My Lady Jane, but that was published 2 years ago, so yeah, and I really enjoyed that. But there's some that I really enjoyed, but I just have minor issues with it, but this was still a good book to read. Another historical fantasy book that I've read that was published this year is Ink, Iron, Glass by Gwendolyn Clare. This one takes place in Victorian Italy, which is really unique because a lot of books that I've read that are historical fiction takes place in Victorian England. So this one was a really interesting one, especially like the fantasy aspects. Is about this girl who can create things just with pen and paper, and her world got destroyed and she got stuck in Victorian Italy, which I really enjoy the story, but the characters, there was not a lot of character development, but hopefully with the sequel it would be much better. So I'm really enjoy this, and I can't wait for the sequel to come out. Next 2018 book release that I've read this year is Winter Glass by Alexa Highlighter. This is a sequel to Spin of Fire, so I don't want to explain a lot because of spoilers, but if you don't know what Spin of Fire is about it's a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but it's about this girl whose little sister ends up being cursed, and she's trying to find a way to break the curse. So it was an interesting read, and I love this more than Spin of Fire. This I've read a lot faster than the previous book because it took me a month to read the last one, and this took me much shorter than it is. And this is a Cinderella retelling, which is really awesome, and it's also different from other retellings that I've read, and this was my favorite sequel out of the two. But and plus it's also, the cover is really beautiful as well. The next 2018 book release that I've read this year is The Wicked Thief by Shea Ernshaw. This was also one of my most anticipated releases of this year, and I love it so much, and I read it within 3 days again, and it's pretty short, so it's like really 300 pages, and I literally read 100 in each Day, and I love it so much. It's like Hocus Pocus meets practical magic, like everybody says, and it's becoming a movie, which I'm really excited about, but I don't know when that movie might come out, but I really want to see it, especially when I enjoyed it so much. The next book that I've read that was published this year is Heart of Iron by Ashley Poston. I also really enjoyed it. I love the world, I love the characters, and I love multiple characters' point of views. It's always a hit and miss for me, but with two characters I'm okay with, but with more than two I was really nervous about that. But after reading this book, I'm like, I want that in other books, because you don't get to see a lot of books with more than two characters' perspectives. And if you guys have any recommendations, let me know in the comments down below, because I want to read more books that has more than two characters' perspectives, and it's one of my favorite books of this year, and I can't wait for Soul of Stars to come out, because I love it so much and I just need more, and I recommend this to anybody who's looking for a new sci-fi book. The last 2018 book release that I've read this year is Seafire by Natalie C. Parker. I really enjoyed it, but I had a problem with the main character, because she's been showing signals on what she wants and didn't want, and that really confused me a bit. But I want to continue on the series because it's awesome, and it has all-female pirates, which you don't see a lot in YA books, and I definitely want to read the sequel because I want to know what happens, and I like the other characters. So that is all for the 2018 book releases that I've read this year. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up and comment down below some 2018 book releases that you've read this year, because I want to know, and there's a lot that I have not read and I'm still kicking my butt for it, but I'm hoping to get to them next year, even though there are 2019 releases that I definitely want to pick up. And if you want to follow me on social media, I have Facebook under Last Reader, and I have Twitter and Instagram on LastReader19, as of Goodreads, which I'll link down below. If you don't want to miss any of my new videos, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!